So I want to do a little video on what I'm learning myself here. And you'll have to forgive my camera action. I'm kind of trying to figure that out too. But I'm trying different methods of soldering. Not different methods, different types of rings, like a thick one. This is actually made, I'm going to do my demonstration on this one because I haven't done this one yet. This is actually this refrigerator copper tubing upcycled, and I hammered it flat into this. I'll be doing the demonstration with this, but I want to show you. I tried this today too. This is approximately 14 gauge copper wire. And what I did was I took the two and wrapped them together by hand. And I left them straight and then soldered them together while they were twisted together. I have to stop saying that. The methods I've learned in the past were incorrect. I'm so glad I found Andrew Barry has a great video by the name of "You've Been Making Rings the Wrong Way," I believe is what it's called, by Andrew Barry. Anyway, I've learned from probably 15 different people on videos and magazines, and I actually took a class, and they all taught me wrong, and I was so frustrated. I was ready to give up on soldering, and I will demonstrate how he did that. But anyway, these turned out really well. You can see my solder seam there. I need to get some better cleanup tools, but it worked out really well. This was my first time, and just from looking at the face of it, you really can't right off the bat tell where my seam is. In fact, I don't even know where my seam is on this one. Shoot. Oh, there it is. You can see a little flat spot there. So then you can see my seam right there. But either way, this isn't too bad for my first. I'm trying all different techniques: twisted, thick, thin, wide, and so forth. Anyway, what I did do is I soldered this with hard solder. But when you learn to solder, a lot of people will express the importance of cleanliness of your metal, whether it's copper, silver, gold, whatever you're working with. I'm practicing with copper because I can get this for free and it's cheap. I used to get so frustrated thinking I had to re-clean everything by hand with rubbing alcohol or soap or whatever every time I made a mistake. Not true. If you have pickle, when you pickle, you got the citrus acid pickle. This is what you put your piece when you're done with it. You put it in there to clean it from the fire scale and such, and that will clean your piece plenty good. Like these, I didn't even clean. I just put them in the pickle after I did the technique I will show you to get the proper measurement to make sure that they were clean enough to solder, so that the solder will flow and everything will work right. Before I learned the pickle, nobody shared that technique with me. So in between your soldering, if you get a screw up, dump it in the pickle for a few minutes, rinse it with some water, dry it off, and it should be clean. So Andrew Barry taught me pi measurements, but if you have a ring blank sizing chart and they go into the millimeters, get yourself a nice little millimeter ruler. And what you'll do, instead of doing the bent method, they're going to teach you how to, well, hold on a second. Let me grab a piece of wire and I'll show you what they'll teach you. Just for a quick entertainment, I'm going to clip this. What they teach you in jewelry classes is they teach you to cut your wire to length for your ring shank, and then they'll want you to do a bend similar to this. They'll want you to do a circle, and then they'll want you to do a hard bend. And they'll want you to meet these little ends just so. And it's such a pain in the ass, pardon my French. But I've spent sometimes 2 hours trying to get these ends to meet perfectly flush where I can solder them. And the idea is when you hold these two pieces together here, that they're completely flush, and then when you hold them up to the light, there's no gap. Impossible. It's possible, but it's time consuming, it's frustrating, and you'll begin to feel like, you have no hope. That's how I felt anyway. Anyway, this is not the right way. The right way is to, on here, this is metric again, but you got your sizes of your rings over here, you got your thickness of your metals here. This doesn't cover the range that I like to use, but we're gonna go with an 18 gauge, and I think it's approximately, or 14 gauge, and I think it's about 1.5 or roughly here. So we're gonna go to 1.8 millimeter. We're gonna say, and we're gonna try to make a size 8. So 1.8 millimeters, size 8 is 62.2. So you take your little measure, and hopefully I didn't rub off my measurements. But if you can see the little black lines there, I got one there, and I got one at the 62, and then I cut it off here. You want extra on both. And then you'll bend it. You'll bend it before you cut it. Don't make any cuts. Don't measure it exactly to the length and cut it off and try to do this. You will be frustrated and you will give up your craft. You're gonna do this. You're gonna bend it around whatever tool you got, and then you're gonna come up with this. And I don't know if you can see my lines, but there's the lines. That's what these measurements here and here. This will give you a size 8. You will take this and you will put it on your bench with your jeweler saw, and you will cut on those lines right there. And then you will just maneuver it back and forth, and you'll have a nice, clean, flush cut. Your points will meet. You may have to go, in and out and back and forth to get it to meet, but it should be relatively flush. And you want it side by side when it's, I don't even know. I think maybe I would stick to, see, this is 14. I wouldn't go much thicker than a 12 gauge. Then you'll want to start to overlap it like this instead when you get to really thick stuff. But you'll want to cut it straight on. So you're cutting these two pieces at the exact same time, if you know what I mean. And then they'll come out like this. This one was an overlapper because it's thick. I hope you're understanding what I'm saying. I can give you a demonstration later. Or I can move my camera up here and see if possibly you would go directly on the marks and saw the two of them at the same time. So your saw pattern will be the same. Your joints will line up nicely. And quite frankly, if you're touching it and everything, throw it in your pickle. It'll be clean. Okay. Anyway, then you should get about the exact measurement for the ring you're looking for. If you're ever questioning the measurement on the chart, I would go a little smaller versus bigger, because you can always stretch the ring. Making it smaller is difficult. So I'm going to go to here. I'm going to show you a couple of little tips on soldering. I'm going to do 2 different types here. I do have a couple of different little butane torches. I got this little baby. This one I use for something like this or this. I've got a bigger one here. This one I'm going to use on this because it's thicker. It's going to have to heat up, faster, and this is the baby to get it done. Anyway, so I've got a self-pickling flux. Works great. I don't recommend fluxing on here, but it's fine. It just eats up your table here a little bit more. I'm going to put flux all over this. My brush is a little stiff. This also has a fire scale protector. Put it all around. If you're working with silver, I've never worked with gold or rose gold or anything like that, so I don't know how that works, but silver and copper, this is going to protect it from damaging, like having to really sand and get the black off from it, from your fire scale. This will remove it all, or keep it from even beginning, is a better way to say it. So I'm going to use some hard solder. There's a couple ways to mark your solder. Hard solder, you give it, medium solder, you give it 1 sharp bend. Hard solder, you give, 2 bends and a little angle. Light solder, you give a little bend. This stuff you have to clean. I do anyway. What I'll do is take a little bit of 00 stainless steel wool, rub it on there, and it should be clean. But you don't ever want your steel wool to get into your pickle. It'll make your pickle not work. So keep that in mind. Stainless steel should never be next to your pickle. If you're going to start scrubbing on this with some stainless steel and you want to pickle it to clean it in between soldering, make sure the stainless steel isn't on it. You'll ruin your batch of pickle. So here's my hard solder. Generally on something this size or this size, you need like a peanut, like a very hair size of solder. I'm going to go, that might be not enough. I don't know. We're going to find out on the video if you can see that. It's pretty tiny, but I got a lot of gap to fill, and I have to take into consideration this is copper tubing and it's been hammered flat, so there is air in there. I've never done this before, so this is an experiment. We'll see how it goes. So the other one I'm going to go a little bit longer, just in case the first one's a fail. So we got these covered with our flux. I'm sorry. Yeah. So this is my flux. I think I said pickle earlier. This is flux. Self-cleaning flux. So you can do a few different ways. You can set the ring like this and have this solder be right on the seam. You want it right on the seam though. Otherwise, what it'll do is it'll melt up the side of the ring and you'll have to clean it all off, and that's a real bummer. Let me back up a little bit here. Or you can do this and hold on a second. You can put it actually on the seam like this. And there's other methods of soldering plates. Hold on a second. You've got your screens, you've got your honeycomb, and there's a little mini tripod you can use. I like to put my block on here on my spinner. There's also this pumice thing here. I don't use that very often. But anyway, we won't get into that. Let's just stick to the task at hand. So what happens is you've got this all wet and it's full of your flux. Once you start to heat it, your flux will start to bubble. And it'll pop your solder piece right out of there. Probably not that one because it's underneath it. This one, there's a possibility it'll bubble and it'll bubble right out of there. We'll see how it works here in a minute. And I will show you. So what some people will do, instead of putting the flux there right now, they'll heat this until all the flux starts to bubble white, and then they'll add their solder so it doesn't bounce off. I'm going to use my big torch, and we're going to give it a whirl. Let's see if it works. We're going to do this one first. I'll bump you up here. I'm going to start by heating just the top. And I know you can't see the flame really well, but there's a blue, at the end of the blue flame is where you kind of want to have it. And I've got hard solder here, and hard solder is harder to get going. But I'm going to heat the ring first on the top, and then I'm going to start to rotate. And get a nice little flow. Hopefully you'll be able to see the solder when it flows.